to the verse-by-verse study of the book of Proverbs. We shall finish chapter 24 today, beginning with verse 17. Do not gloat when your enemy falls, when they stumble. Do not let your heart rejoice, or the Lord will see and disapprove and turn his wrath away from them. This is such wise advice, that we're not to submit to the emotion of gloating when we see our enemy fall. Gloating is finding joy in someone else's pain. And of course, an enemy is someone that's committed sin against us. And because of that sin, God has chosen to administer tough love to that person. Why? To allow them to experience the consequences of that sin, in order to attempt to get them back on the right track. Scripture's clear. God does not celebrate when someone falls. It does not bring his heart joy. It brings sadness. And likewise, the warning to us is we're not to gloat over another person's pain, because that gloating is also sin, and we become subject to God's tough love. Next, do not fret, meaning the emotion of both worry and anger, because of evildoers, or be envious, another negative emotion, of the wicked. For the evildoer has no future hope, and the lamp of the wicked will be snuffed out. God's wisdom throughout the book of Proverbs teaches that we are to strive to have a heart that is at peace, meaning not a heart of worry, anger, envy, jealousy. We're not to allow those kind of negative emotions to take root and control our attitude, and therefore our actions, and therefore our lives. God's truth says that a heart at peace will yield a healthy, an abundant life. And a heart that's full of these toxic bitterness of envy, jealousy, worry, anger, etc., that's the opposite of peace. And the verse says that it will rot our bones. But one might say, well, wait a minute. Hey, I'm justified in having this bitterness because that person wronged me. Or that person, it just isn't fair because that person is benefiting from their bad behavior. God's wisdom says that we are to strive to be at peace. Well, how do you do that? By trusting in God, trusting in this promise that those that engage in evil will have no future. The next verse is related. Fear of the Lord, and the king, my son, and do not join with rebellious officers or officials. For those two, meaning God and the king, will send sudden destruction on them, and who knows what calamities they can bring. The verse is reminding us our first priority, our focus should be on the fear of the Lord, which means to respect. To fear means to follow, to respect and follow God. And this admonition is repeated throughout Proverbs. In fact, 14 different times. Why? Because it's so foundational to the gaining and being blessed from his wisdom. The author adds to respect the king also, which means to also respect the civil law. Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. He did not advocate forcing his message at the point of a sword, nor did he advocate engaging in civil unrest or rebellion. Unfortunately, the Jewish people did not listen, and in 70 A.D., Rome harshly put down their rebellion with the full destruction of the holy city of Jerusalem, as well as the temple, and this massive genocide and dispersion of the Jewish people. So, is there any time that we should not follow civil law? Yes, rarely, under two conditions. When that law clearly is in direct conflict with God's first priority, God's law, and also God has given us clear discernment, guidance to disobey. Ecclesiastes 8:5 explained it this way. it says that the wise heart will know the time and the procedure. Next, in verse 23, we highlight another somewhat subtle but highly destructive emotion. These also are sayings of the wise, to show partiality, meaning unfair favoritism, in judging is not good. Favoritism means that we're treating or judging someone better or worse because of perhaps a bribe, or because of their rank, or because of their social status, their wealth, their skin color, or simply because we like them or we don't like them. We allow our emotions to unfairly judge that person. And our civil law in the United States was built on a unique godly principle: equal justice under the law. This core value is literally chiseled above the entrance to our Supreme Court. And it is why Our Lady of Justice wears a blindfold. It's the same meaning that Pastor Martin Luther King said when he said we are to judge someone solely based on their character. Character means our choices of behavior, which is also the point of the next two verses, beginning in 24. Whoever says to the guilty, you are innocent, will be cursed by peoples and denounced by nations. But it will go well with those who find a conviction of the guilty, and rich blessings will come on them. Again, to put it simply, it's a warning that how you and I judge others in life is how God will judge us. Next, an honest answer is like a kiss on the lips. In this culture, Jewish men often would kiss on the cheek as a sign of a greeting, an acceptance, and a friendship. You and I are to welcome the truth the same way, as a friend. Put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready. After that, only after that, build your house. This wisdom is encouraging us to engage in prayer and planning before we rashly take on any new responsibilities. The implication here is building a house is taking on a major financial obligation, which also involves marriage typically. The advice is that we should exercise prudence and not fall to the emotion of recklessness. We should first ensure that our fields are productive and are ready to produce food and income that we'll need in order to take on that commitment. Next, we have another negative emotion. Do not testify against your neighbor without cause. Would you use your lips to mislead? Do not say, I'll do to them as they have done to me. I'll pay them back for what they did. So we have a situation where our neighbor has unfairly harmed us. And we have this opportunity to get back, to get revenge, payback time. How? By testifying falsely against them, either through gossip or court system, that we can tell a little white lie and really get them into trouble. Bottom line, wisdom says that is sin, period. We are not to submit to that flesh emotion of revenge. Again, we are to trust God and leave it to God. Vengeance belongs to Him. The chapter will close with a parable about another destructive emotional choice called laziness. The story begins, I went past the field of a sluggard, past the vineyard of someone who had no sense. No sense here is the Hebrew word literally means no heart for diligence. Thorns had come up everywhere. The ground was covered with weeds, and the stone wall was in ruins. I applied my heart to what I observed and learned a lesson from what I saw. So we have that God has blessed this man with a vineyard, likely an inheritance. And the verse implies he was also blessed with the capacity to manage and maintain this vineyard, but he lacked the will. As a result, the blessing was sadly wasting away. Now, but next, notice the three-step process on the part of the author, which differs from the person in the story. He says, I have applied my heart, meaning that he has made a decision. He has a desire to what? To learn. I observed, meaning he put his desire to work. And as a result of that diligence, I learned. So what lesson did he learn? Or what lesson can we learn? The final two verses tell us. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. The wisdom warns that the habit of laziness always dangerously begins small. I'll skip work today, just this one day. I'll do that job tomorrow. Soon these small actions, these small choices, develop into a habit. As Coach Lombardi said correctly, that our choices, our actions determine our habits, which determine our character, which indeed determines our destiny. God's strong warning here is that a habit of laziness results in poverty. Poverty both financially, emotionally, because of that sadness, and poverty spiritually, because we're dishonoring God. Well, that closes chapter 24. We will begin chapter 25 next week. Until then, may God bless you and your family with both grace and peace. Aloha.